I'm going to just quickly go through how we gather. If you want to say hi to each other in the chat while I'm yapping at you, please do. Take a second, make yourselves comfortable, grab a warm drink, something to write with, something to write on. If this is your first time here, hi and welcome. I'm so glad you found your way here. I'm Ariella Morkowitz, the founding director of SVIVAH, a community of Jewish women where we put women at the center, where all we want to do is learn with and from each other. We define both women and Jewish broadly, so if you want to be with us, we want you with us and welcome. These next 30 minutes are going to be 30 minutes plus. I think we have a little bit of extra today. Are going to be a chance to just press pause in our day and our week and the way the world is running faster than we are. A chance to plant our feet a little bit more firmly and gain some steadiness to take into this week ahead, whatever it will hold. Naama Sadan is our most gorgeous educator and scholar with a beautiful, beautiful teaching style that interweaves the psychological with the spiritual, with the feminine, and it is gorgeous. If you're new to Naama's teaching, please don't be worried if you hear Hebrew mentioned. Everything will come into translation and understanding, but the beauty of the Hebrew is a piece of what elevates the learning. Many of us are not native Hebrew speakers at all, but have no fear. I promise it will all come together. And as a learning community, we're all going to chip in and help offer explanations in the chat as needed. And please ask if there's something that you didn't catch. You will be doing all of us a favor. And we're going to be recording. I am always so grateful to Naama for her teaching, but today especially, I feel like I say that every Monday, but it's very true. I will be the first to admit that I am totally a hot mess. I may or may not have found my coffee in the freezer this morning and poured coffee creamer into my cereal today. So despite me looking and pretending like I have my act together, that is not true. This is how my week is starting. I'm looking forward to the rest of the surprises that are waiting for me the rest of this week. I read something this morning that immediately made me think of all of you. It was from the writer Sarah Tuttle Singer, who is a beautiful writer who lives in Jerusalem and is married to an Arab Israeli and is very, very honest in her writing about the complexities of life right now. And she shared today something that just like totally, I wanted to just read it to you guys. Humans are very good at surviving upheaval, but we are slower at understanding what it has done to us. Part of that understanding is simply acknowledging the feeling many of us carry now, that the world tilted a few degrees off its axis. The illusion of stability was canceled. The systems we trusted turned out to be more fragile than we imagined. The rhythms we relied on vanished almost overnight, and now we move through our days with a quiet new knowledge. The ground beneath us was never as solid as we thought. So I am very, very happy to be here with all of you. And thank you, Naama, as always, for this anchoring space you've created for all of us.
The space. And thank you everyone for making the time to be here. This was a beautiful poem. Yeah. And I think the ground that felt very stable under our feet, a lot of it is social ground, right? That our expectations of like what's supposed to happen that is dependent on how we think of our words. I think our words became so cheap. I think we mentioned it here in the past. Our people are just throwing words everywhere in the last few decades with the ability to just write words and send them wherever. And what we're trying to do here together is really to kind of like bring back the heaviness of words. This is why we call it Ogen, anger. In the kind of like many words that fly around and make no sense or make us furious, we're trying to just focus on one word. It's even shorter than Twitter. We're trying to focus on one word and bring back the heaviness of the word, because we are part of a tradition, we are part of a lineage that really takes words very seriously, and that thinks that words are carriers of energy. And I think we as women also can pay attention to the fact that words are not in the abstract. Words are happening in our mouth, they happen in our body. And words that happen in a body are different than words that happen just on a computer screen. When I say something to you and you hear it in my voice, And when you hear it sing my body, and even more so if we're in the same space or if it's just like two of us or three of us and it's more intimate, the words are just heavier and more real. And yeah, so I'm really grateful to doing this word of taking our words back, reclaiming our words back, our language, because we need to be able to speak to ourselves and to others, and we want the words to matter. And we want the words to be real. I want my words to be real. I want to stop living in all these like illusions. And the world is constantly changing. That was always true. The world is always in cycles. That was always true. But I think lately we are experiencing a lot more exogenous, kind of like big shocks, rather than just like the small shocks that usually just move the system in kind of like a more natural or what we think of as the natural way. Um, and I'll just say that one of my dear teachers, Estelle Gofield, that I mentioned here many times, I think, or I should mention her more, she taught me about she's a very incredible woman and she teaches about women's cycles, but not just like, our cycle, but the cycle of like what it means to have a cycle. And I would just say full disclosure, I actually don't have very regular cycles, but I feel that it was so important for me to learn about the cycle. Okay, we'll talk about it a little later, but like just the fact that what happens here, the mystics tell us happens above. If something's happening in us, if we have a cycle, if women have a cycle, then there's also like some spiritual meaning to that. And there's something that we can use as spiritual anchors. And I'm mentioning her because she says the women are called Ba'alot Hapeh. The women in Hebrew, in some of the literature, are called those who have the mouths. And that's because in the Mishnah, sometimes they spoke of women as having two mouths, the upper mouth and the lower mouth, which is their way to say vagina. But I'm just saying that because we're speaking about words, and there's something about words that is about expressing it out, right? Birthing words. The Hebrew word for word is milah. Almost sounds like circumcision, right? There's something about women that we love to talk. At least this is how people think about women. And I just feel in SVIVAH that we can claim all these things that were spoken about women in a bad way and actually claim it and say it's great. Yeah, we are Balot Habe. We are the ones who have many mouths. It's really important for us to speak. It's really important for us to speak in a very real way and don't think that it's a bad thing. It's actually really important that people learn to speak intimately with each other, to share, to be able to express, to be able to listen. And that's something that needs to be learned. It's not a bad thing and it's not an easy thing. And now I spoke too much and I want to take a moment of quiet as we always do when we enter this shared space. So we're going to take 2 minutes to just check in with ourselves, take a moment to just check in with ourselves, and just see what's moving in me, what's going on for me today, what are the things that are flying in my head, in my heart. If there's too much that I want to leave in the kind of like threshold, I can just leave it on the paper. If there's something that I just want to think through, if I just want to be with myself, just I try to just do automatic writing on my notebook. And if you are looking for something to think about, we're going to speak today about the word Yir'ah. Yir'ah is the Hebrew word that sometimes is translated as fear into English, but we'll see that it's a word that has much more to offer to us. And I would offer that we can call it Yir'ah, because Yir'ah can also mean awe. And awe has like some type of almost fear, but I would say maybe reverence, right? Like, wow. So Yir'ah is a word for today that we're going to work with. And 2 minutes, just what's moving in me and what is Yir'ah for me? What do I feel when I think of Yir'ah? What does it remind me of? And I'll call you back in 2 minutes. Right. I'd love to hear your um, thoughts about Yir'ah and um, yeah, in the chat. If you, yeah. Oh, so you're exactly on what I wanted to start with. Being afraid of being seen and also not being seen. Okay, so feel free to keep putting in the chat whatever you want. I know that this is a word that maybe is not as familiar, so maybe you don't have connotations or associations with it right away. But let's talk about it. I thought to speak about Yir'ah from, I don't know, it came to me and I felt like that's going to be our word for this week. But like, there's something about this time. It's a time with a lot of Yir'ah, but also time with no Yir'ah at all. It's a time with a lot of fear because there's so much changing and there are very frightening things happening and a lot of chaos. And sometimes it feels like some of these things are happening because there's no Yir'ah, because there's no fear or reverence of like something that can hold us all in place. The kind of eye that will see you. It feels like some of the leaders in the world feel like no one looks at them. They can do whatever they want. That's a very frightening feeling that feels like there's no boundary. So I want to start just like the word yir'ah, the Hebrew root is to lir'ot, to see, to watch, to be seen. And it's so deep to be seen, right? This is like such a deep, deep thing that we have. And surprisingly, when we're born, the one sense that is actually not so developed is our sight. We can't really see when we're born. We're kind of like seeing 30 centimeters and it's like blurry and black and white. It takes time for our eyes to learn to see. It takes time for our brains to learn to see because the sight is so impacted by it's a learning it's a learning um, it's a learning process. It's a learning process. You have to have a lot of experiences for the brain to learn to see. And I think what makes me feel hopeful about that is that we can still learn to see. That's what I want us to kind of like think about a little bit with Yira. One thing that we have in our texts is shalosh פעמים בשנה ייראה כל זכורך. The 3 times in the year, every person needs to come and be seen in the temple. And I was just starting with that thought when I was thinking about this word yir'ah. And I was like, what an amazing thing it is to be seen. All of us want to be seen. It's such a deep thing. We want people to see us. It's a very big pain when you feel like no one sees you, or when you're in a situation when you feel that you're not seen. It's very big pain. You feel so small. You could feel insignificant. You can feel furious. Like, why do they not see me? And I think for women, it's even a more common experience than everyone else. Like there's a lot of people writing about it and doing this. Like it just like, oh, sorry, I just didn't see it. A lot of the work that women traditionally do are like just not seen. Just like, oh, of course, it should be part of like, it's not seen. And what happens when it is seen? It's such a deep feeling. Wow, people see what I do. I folded all this laundry. I invested time in it and I did it with care and love. I cooked this food. This food did not come, the pasta did not come ready to the table from heaven. There were a lot of people that were involved. Can we see it? Can we see the people who planted it, harvested it, dried it, cooked it, whatever you need for pasta? I never made pasta from scratch. I know that some people are more evolved than me, but just saying, like, there's so much that we don't see. There's so much that we don't see and that we could see, and there's such a deep feeling to being seen. But I think, as Sarah mentioned, it's also very frightening to be seen. Sometimes you don't want to be seen. You're like, what if someone sees me when I'm doing this thing that might be not okay? What if someone sees me and kind of like thinks this or this about me, right? Many things in our life we don't do just because we think someone will see us. Some things sometimes that we really want to do, but we're just so afraid of that sight. And I think that brings me back to the fact that Yir'ah in the Hebrew is also connected to the tree of the Sfirot that we mentioned here many times. So it's also an aspect of the divine, and that's the aspect of the divine that is called Yir'ah. It's also called Din. It's called boundaries. It's called justice. So there's something about Yir'ah that is also like the moment someone sees you, there's a boundary there. Yir'ah, surprisingly, is one of the feminine aspects of the divine energy. Some people think that yir'ah or fear or like this kind of like sometimes it's called gevura, the kind of like strength will be on the masculine side of the divine energy, but no, it's on the feminine side. And I think there's something about this boundary, right? And when I think boundary, I always go back to this idea of like the womb. When you're held in a boundary, there's something that feels so good about it, and there's something so frightening about it because you're limited. So I think being seen is like being cradled. Being seen is like, oh wow, someone sees me. I'm in a container. I'm not just like, ooh, there in the ocean, plankton, no one sees me. No, someone sees me. I'm in their sight. And that's also the frightening thing. Someone sees me. I'm in their sight. And the question is, what kind of gaze you think that person or God or society has on you? And Yemima teaches, and I'm sorry if I'm saying things here again and again, but whatever, I feel like I need to hear it again and again. Yemima teaches that like kids are nourished by the like warm sight of their parents. And I think we are still also as adults. There's something about a warm sight when someone looks at you with a warm heart that is very nourishing. And when someone looks at you with an empty heart or like a judging heart, that is very frightening. And the question here is like, how are we developing in ourselves ability to look at people with the good heart? And also, how are we not afraid when someone else has their sight on us? So how do we work with that push and pull of yir'ah, of that, yeah, to see, to be seen, also not to be afraid of being seen, also to use that energy that the fear that someone sees me to balance myself. Maybe it's not a good thing to do. Maybe it's a great thing to do. But like the fact that I have a second thought because I feel under someone's gaze might be a good thing. I think it's good for us in society to feel like someone sees us. The police might be here. I don't want everybody to not be afraid of it. It's a good thing to have yir'ah. It's a boundary that holds us in a good place, could could hold us in a good place. So we talked a little bit about being seen, and I see that there's a lot of good stuff that I kind of want to read, but I'm going to get to it in a moment because our time is always is flying. So I also want to speak a little bit about seeing what's happening when we're looking at someone, when we are ro'im, when I see someone. What does that mean for us? Just like, and look, these words are just like, it's always amazing to me how much is in like a word, yir'ah. Just like in this word, yir'ah, reverence. or fear or awe. So to see someone, I think sometimes we don't want to open our eyes to see someone. I don't know if it happened to you, but sometimes when you pass in the street and there's like homeless street people on the sides, you just kind of like move your sight. You don't want to look. And why don't you want to look? Because the moment we look at someone, that's a relationship. That's it. And the Jewish philosopher Levinas would say that the moment you saw someone, you're responsible for them. He thinks, based on all kinds of Talmudic stories, that this is actually a Jewish principle, that when you saw someone, right away you're responsible for them. You don't have a way to run away from it, which is like, whoa. So I think there's something about seeing someone, even though in a way you're not yet connected, you didn't say anything, you're not committed, but you are commit in some way you're committed. So I think Yir'ah is always also like this fear. The moment I'll see it, it will be part of my life. I can't unsee it. The moment I see it, it's here. So there's this fear sometimes to open our eyes. So then therefore we are turning our eyes a lot of the time. And then there's also, and now we're going again back to our verses, to our psukim, to the Torah text, this beautiful verse in really the beginning, right? The beginning of the creation story, where we hear that when when Adam and Eve eat from the fruit tree, what happens to them? Their eyes open. ויפקחו עיני שניהם. You're like, what happened? Their eyes were open, for sure, their eyes were open. What happened to them? It also happens to Bil'am, right? This prophet, there's a story later on in the book of Bamidbar, when there's this prophet, not non-Jewish prophet, who's coming to curse the Israelites, and he's walking in the path and he doesn't see until God opens his eyes, right? So sometimes I think our Torah tells us sometimes we don't see something when it's right in front of us. Sometimes there might be a way to reopen our eyes. And I think that's where Yir'ah becomes Yir'ah. I don't even know exactly how to pronounce it, but like sometimes there's like beautiful things under our nose, and there are there. Like I'm just thinking to myself right now, I look at you, but I look at you through this screen. And it's totally normal. Of course, I can just look at you through the screen and see all your beautiful faces in this video conference call. And but like, I grew up in a world where there was no way of speaking in video with people. My whole childhood, it was like we thought it was like, I don't know, a thing in the future. Like when aliens will come to Earth, we'll also have like video conferencing. Here we are, 2026, and just like to look at the screen and just open your eyes for a moment. Whoa, I'm in awe. Look at this. There's this machine. Wow, people worked and found all these ways to make it happen. I think it happens a lot with young kids. I walk with my son to daycare, and he's all the time very like in awe of things. He's like, wow, yellow flower. And then a pink flower. Wow. Right? And to some extent, it's like, huh, come on. And on the other hand, I feel so grateful to be able to do this path with him and be like, wow, yellow flower. It's beautiful. There's like a whole system here for this flower, that this flower knows how to grow, what time of the year, where it will get sun, how to reproduce, like all these things. It's incredible. We are kind of like habituated to it because we can't look at it all the time because we have to do our important work and be on our computers and blah, 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 blah. Look at Facebook, whatever it is that we're doing, nonsense all the time. But I think a practice of Yir'ah is really kind of like also to open our eyes and see. wow, there are things around. And that does give you some yir'ah. That does give you some reverence because you're like, wow, this world is serious. These flowers are not just like, you know, how do you say tifora? Forget the word. It's not just like, what do you call the thing that is on the stage in the theater? Um,
Scenery,
Scenery?
scenery.
Yeah, thank you. It's not just like scenery for me walking here. There's like a whole world. There's a whole world that I can see. And even when I look at myself to be like, wow, I'm alive. And look at me. I have a nose and two eyes and eyebrows and all these things the young kids are so excited about. And truthfully, they are exciting. And I have been through this and this. And there's going to be a Seder. And I might feel like, oh, boring. But like, wow, I'm going to do something that my parents and grandparents and ancestors forever and ever were doing. Wow, that's a big deal. So just to see the big dealness of our life, um, I think is also this part of Yir'ah. Um, yeah, so to be seen and to see and yeah, so this is just a beginning, a scratch on the word Yir'ah, because there were a few more things that I wanted to say, but we're almost at time. So I'll say two things. One is in a way of invitation to a longer Ogen series for those who are interested. But also, if you're not coming to the series, just to share this idea. And then another idea from Yemima. So, as I said, there's something about the site that it's a learning experience. It's a learning experience. We learn to see. And what amazing is that there's like these beautiful studies these days that we actually don't see a lot of things around us because there's so much that is happening. So our brain is choosing. What do we see based on what we're looking for in our do you know how sometimes you walk in the house and you're like, where is my phone or whatever? Where is that? Right? You don't see it. It's like it's blending into something. It's like that's maybe not the best example, but like there's these very cool studies where they told people to focus on something and then they have like a gorilla going in the back and people just don't see the gorilla because they're like so focused on the thing that they're looking to see. So sometimes we're just very focused on like things that um that we were taught or thought that we should look at, and we miss other things. And one thing that I feel very strongly about is um, kind of like the ceremonial aspect of our homes. So I'm going back to where we started a little bit and saying, like, sometimes the things women traditionally did are just kind of like marginalized and are not seen. And one of them is the housework. So there's a lot of housework that goes into everything that happens, including our Jewish life, or that could go into it. Shabbat is a lot of work, mainly for women. Pesach is a lot of work, mainly for women. So we live in a more egalitarian world. I hope everybody's not in like crazy situation. But actually, what I want to say is even beyond this. It's like, how can we, at last, learn that it's actually really important work that should be seen and appreciated? That our homes are sanctuaries. I grew up in a house in a very religious environment, and I was not allowed ever to sit on the table because my parents always said to me, "Shulchan ze kmo mizbeach." The table is like the altar. You're not sitting on the table. That's it. And in our school too, we were not allowed to sit on the desks because Shulchan kmo mizbeach. Because actually, we have this in our texts that our tables are like an altar, and we are putting offerings on them. Our Shabbat meal. And therefore, we should take them very seriously in a very holy way. So when COVID hit and we actually moved all our sanctuary ceremonial work into the home, um, I felt like I really need to make like some type of a different thing in my house to make sure that I feel that it's like um, that it feels ceremonial, that I'm not davening just like in my living room in my pajamas. So the way I found to do it is just to kind of like think of the aesthetics of my house and remind myself that caring for my home is really a very deep thing. And that really requires opening the eyes because caring for the home is a very tedious thing. And caring for our kids, if we have them around, or our housemates, whoever it is, or our community is a very tedious thing, but it's also very deep, holy work. And something that helped me was like to reopen my eyes to color. So our Jewish tradition has a whole tradition about color and how color, the energy, the vibe, the wavelength of a color is actually a signal of a specific divine aspect and how we can connect to these aspects in our home. And I started just bringing sometimes very small items into my house. I love flowers, so I brought flowers. I also live in Berkeley. We have a lot of flowers. And it was just like, how can I bring these flowers and teach my eyes to see color in a new way? Teach my eyes that when I see red, it means Gevura, it means Yir'ah, it means Din. Um, and I totally recommend everybody to have a sanctuary that they go to that is public. I really think it's a very important and good thing for our well-being, but I also feel that we have to not forget about the holiness of our home. And what I'm inviting you to do is if you want to join me between Pesach and Shavuot, we're going to reteach our eyes to see colors and to just think of the aesthetics of our house and how to bring holiness there and how to open our eyes also to our own work in our house to feel the holy work that we do, to feel that it's holy work, and to even invite others to do that holy work if they want to. And again, everybody in their own context. Um, and the way we'll do it is we're going to learn the the different sfirot, the different aspects of the divine, and how they connect to color, and how we can bring small touches of color, the white napkins on the table for the Seder, or the light blue flowers that I can bring for Shabbat, and make little altars in our house. Make just like bring this like wavelength, see our home in a different way, open our eyes to our home and open our eyes to our work in our home, um, and and to really appreciating it. And I really look forward to teaching this course because I taught about colors a few times in SVIVAH, and I had this crazy idea of cards and I created the cards, and some of you have heard a lot of from me about these cards. But I feel that the next step for me is really to learn how to use the cards and really to learn how to kind of like materialize it in a way that I can articulate, not just like I do it naturally for myself, but like to articulate it more. So I'll be so excited for each of you that will join me for the series, and you can find it on the website. And there's a special prize for SVIVAH people, and you're totally welcome. I'll be so excited to have you there. Um, and the last thing I want to finish with, which is another way of training our sight. So one way really is training our sight with color, there's many ways that we can open our eyes. Another way that I want to just offer before we're closing is what Yemima called, and we're starting to get ready for Seder. I know that some people want to just suppress this, but like Pesach is coming. So one thing that Yemima taught is it's called Haseder HaTiv'i VaSeder HaNachon, the right order and the natural order. And she said, naturally, we're our eyes are attracted to everything that doesn't work. And she says that's a way that we're trying to protect ourselves. We're like, oh, I'll fix it. Oh, let me just see what's not working. And she said that is Hesed Relativi. That's the natural order. And she said that one thing that a person might want to reflect on in writing every day or once a week or however much you can is, what did I see today that works? I think that's, again, a process of opening your eyes. Wow, I can breathe. Wow, I can see. Wow, like I had a conversation with my spouse and it was fine. If I had a fight, right? I would definitely think about it. Can I just pay attention when it works? And she says, and this is Heseda Hanachon. This is the right order, but it's a learned experience. It's not something that comes, she says, naturally, you'll pay attention to everything that doesn't work. Can you shift your sight a little bit to everything that works and just see it? See it before you just see everything that doesn't work. Um, so that's our Yir'ah for today, and I would love to close with just if you can put in the chat whatever it is that you want to take with yourself for the week for Yir'ah. What's the Yir'ah, the reverence, the awe, the fear, insight that you want to take with you this week? And as usual, I'm always recommending that Ariel makes a bumper stickers out of it, but would love to hear from you. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna. All right, so with that, we're closing for today. I'm happy to open for questions if Ariella would remove me from the spotlight. And we're wishing you hopefully a quiet week, but if not, to have the Gevura to go through it, the Yir'ah and the Gevura and the Deen and everything, like the power, the energy, which is, by the way, red. And this is why I wore red today. So just put something red. We'll give you some energy, some boundaries. Okay, that's the color of Gevura.
Is it
Love you
okay,
all.
Nama, if I put the photo in the chat of the of all of the spherod and their colors? Just the big picture with all the flowers?
Sure. Of course. Yeah.
Because it's so beautiful. And I really want to thank you. I know you started today talking about how words have lost meaning and we need to find their weight and connect with them again. And I not only, I think today words was one piece of it, but I think for me, this idea of Yir'ah and awe, and also the integration of the idea of colors, you've kind of literally given us encouragement to open our eyes differently and to look at things that aren't, to look for the gorilla, right? To see the thing, there's so much that's in front of our faces constantly that we don't see the things that are the things that give us strength, the things that give us stability, the things that give us what our souls really need. We're so distracted by so much else. And that's what I love so much about what you taught us about the colors, because it allowed us, it allowed me to find so much more meaning in the everyday. Like that our days are so full of distraction and noise that having colors was such a beautiful way to anchor with something that I need in my life, that I actually want to put there. And you gave it spiritual meaning that when I opened my eyes, and I'm so grateful and thank you for tying those two together today. And I'm really excited and hope everybody can do the class with you. I love it.
Yes. I would love to see everyone who wants to deepen in the class. I would also say that if you just want to learn about the colors, there's excellent videos that we have from SVIVAH on YouTube. We did a whole series on it last year between Pesach and Shavuot, I'm pretty sure. I usually always go there on Pesach and Shavuot because Pesach and Shavuot, the time between Pesach and Shavuot, Sfirat HaOmer, is traditionally the time in our tradition to connect with the Sfirot, with the ascending of the Sfirot. So the Sfirot are the articulation of the different aspects of the divine that we are trying to bring together. And the divine, is external to us, but also lives in us. So there are things that we can do in our world to just unite things in the world. And these are very real things, like putting red flowers on the table, but potentially it has impact in ways that we don't know on the bigger world because we never know what echoes our actions do. But like our mystics say, as below, so above. What you do below has impact above and has echoes everywhere. So if you want to just get acquainted with the colors, there's the YouTube videos, and I think we probably can send a link in the email from SVIVAH. And if you want to go deeper into it and do practice, then come to the class. It will be a lot of fun. Fun, I don't know if it's exactly the right word, but I think it's going to be good practice. So to all of you, have a lovely weekend and we'll see you soon. Much love.